And it's a warm welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour Dominaria. You're with me, Riley Knight, him, Simon Gertzen, Pro Tour champion. We have another round of standard in the chamber ready to go, my friends. We're going to head down to the feature match area. Right now, the players are in readiness, so let's get to it. The next round of standard from Pro Tour Dominaria coming at you. What's up, everyone? Welcome along to the feature match area here at Pro Tour Dominaria. Coming at you live from Richmond, Virginia. My name's Riley. I've got the great pleasure to be joined by the Pro Tour champion, Simon Gertzen, good friend of mine. Simon, on the screen for the viewing pleasure of our audience today, we have, facing off against each other, there he is, Aleksa Telerov. This guy playing a pretty weird one. We're going to get across his green-blue deck in just a second, but we've got to talk about his opponent, Ernest Lim here. Bit of a Cinderella. He's catching his 40 winks before we get underway, and these players are going to get stuck in right. Oh, wake up! Here we go. Jeez, I'm in the feature match here. Let's begin. Here we go. And he is on, of course. We've seen this before. Esper Control. Now, talk to us about Aleksa Telerov's deck. We're calling it Steel Leaf Stompy, but there's a bit of a wrinkle here.
Yes, it's not a mono green Steel Leaf Stompy list. It is splashing blue. Now, it's not very difficult to splash something in these kind of decks, but the real question is, which card are you actually interested in casting off the splash? The answer that the Team Eureka deck has come up with is Commit to Memory. A really interesting way to deal with permanence out of a mostly green deck. Yeah,
not exactly what I would have expected. You think you'd splash blue for any number of other cards, but it's this like hard control card, Commit to Memory, but super flexible, enables all sorts of, I guess, gameplay actions that wouldn't otherwise be allowed to a green deck. But much more importantly as well, we have things coming out of the sideboard. Most importantly, of course, Double Negate, the best sideboard card ever printed, of course. Here is now a Thrashing Brontodon. Old Thrashy B is not going to be allowed here by Ernest Lim, who has done a good job of containing Telerov's early game so far.
Fatal Push on Llanowar Alps, Syncopate on Thrashing Brontodon. Heart of Kiran snuck through, but has not been able to attack just yet.
Here is Adventurous Impulse, nicknamed by some the Green Ponder. It's a great way for green decks to keep those cards flowing. Pretty innocuous little card, and is going to hit in a creature-heavy deck like this.
Yeah, and actually it will find really, really scary cards. This time around, we actually have Ronas. Now, that card is pretty scary when you combine it with Heart of Kiran.
Ronas the Indomitable here is going to be put on the stack. We'll see what Lim has to say about that. He does have the Disallow in hand, but it's going to be a Syncopate instead, a much better use of that card. Rather conditional counterspell, gets worse as the game goes along.
Ernest is actually lacking land rolls, but he has so many answers in his hand that might not actually be too bad for him.
And as soon as he hits that fourth land, going to be able to refuel with Glimmer of Genius there. We'll see what Telerov wants to bring to the table. His hand looking a little light on action. He does have a copy of Llanowar Elves. In addition to that, I think there's a Verdurous Gearhulk hanging out in his hand as well. And, well, I mean, the Gearhulk's a great threat, but it has to hit the table first.
Yeah, and this turn he is actually taking off from casting anything of substance here. Probably wants to have that Llanowar Elves in play before deploying the Gearhulk.
Wants to sort of diversify the eggs across several baskets there.
Exactly, especially because he's playing against a heavy blue-black version, so it's not so much about playing around Settle the Wreckage.
Well, we're going to see the elves, I should say, cast down there. Lim not interested in having them sticking around. Looks like the hub from him means that Glimmer of Genius online.
Exactly, and it looks like he's holding Fatal Push as the most mana efficient answer to Heart of Kiran.
So Telerov now. We return to him, a Servant of the Conduit off the top. But we'll see what his play is. It is going to be the Servant. He really is sandbagging that Gearhulk. He wants to get his value.
I wanted to mention a lot of the play patterns we've seen against the control decks have been to just deploy threat after threat after threat. And usually it's either the aggro player winning if the control decks run out of answers, or the control decks take over and then start their card advantage engines. Unfortunately, for the red-black vehicles deck, for example, it has often been the case that this kind of play pattern was really good for the control deck. So maybe Aleksa is onto something here, delaying his threat and basically forcing Ernest to be aware, to be careful about when he uses his mana in which ways.
Here's Verdurous Gearhulk now for the Serbian. Lim with, well, plenty of answers for it, really. He's got a syncopate, he's got a disallow. We'll see which one he wants to leverage here. Having a good old think about it as well. We already have an update from the back tables, however, here as this game continues. Ryuji Mirai from Japan is playing Luca Esparbutu from Brazil. I can tell you that the Japanese player getting up in game number 1, Ryuji Mirai leading the Brazilian 1-0. On a main match, however, it looks like we did see Lim able to answer that Verdurous Gearhulk, but the Servant of the Conduit's going to get in first blood.
Yeah, but I mean, this is not where Alexa Telarov wants to be. Flooding out here. Of course, Hashaboresis does have an ability, but against the control deck, you can't just pump your creature and hope that this will accomplish much.
Hashap Oasis doing its best to be, you know, a card that does a little bit, provides a little bit of action here for Alexa Telarov as a land, as a spell land, I guess you could call it here. But generally speaking, not going to be enough against Lim, who's down to 16, a very defensible life total here.
And we're seeing what we've seen over and over again this weekend. The control deck just removing threat after threat, and the opposing deck flooding out, basically drawing a lot of their lands, not being able to put on any more pressure.
And this is where we see the importance of cards like Glimmer of Genius, right? I mean, the blue-black deck full of one-to-one removal, cards that, you know, don't necessarily pull you ahead in and of themselves, but then you cast that Glimmer of Genius, you refuel, you look at up to 4 cards, and you find what you need. And that's the way that Ernest Lim's deck eventually wins a game, just by burying it in incremental advantage.
Yeah, imagine if Glimmer of Genius wasn't in this standard format. Control players would have to play something like Divination or really awkward ways to get those extra cards.
There's Hieroglyphic Elimination, which is a straight up draw 2 cards at instant speed, but again, yeah, the really important difference there is the scry. You get to see up to 4 cards, so if you're really digging for that specific answer, you get to see a much higher percentage of your deck there with the Glimmer. And oh my goodness me, Alexa Telarov playing a 40-land deck by the look of things. He just cannot catch a break. I can't remember the last time he drew a non-land card. And Ernest Lim is having this one handed to him on a silver platter. The Serbian cannot find what he needs. But look at that, cool, calm, collected. Cool as a cucumber.
He doesn't look particularly happy, but collected is true.
Another Ether hub here for Lim, who's up to 6 energy. And now, untapping lands with the hero of Dominaria, Teferi, the win condition of choice, of course, for many of these blue-white based decks, and even some that aren't base blue-white splashing for the hero in this situation.
Yes, and this Esper control list actually has Torrential Gearhulk and the Scarab God as well, so it can close out games much more easily than the pure blue-white control decks.
Steel Leaf champion now for Ernest Lim, who, with 3 copies of Disallow, lets it resolve. Hashep Oasis charges up the Heart of Kiran, and in it goes a Teferi. Here's a fatal push, however. We know that Lim's been sitting on that for a long time, Simon.
Yeah, and the second Heart of Kiran, Alexa couldn't deploy that until now.
So freeing up the hand, his hand rather nicely there as a cast down gets rid of the 5/4. 3-mana 5/4. What does the world come to, Simon?
Well, we've had 3-mana 5/4s a couple of years back.
Woolly Thoktar.
Yeah. Back in my times.
Back in the old grandpa days. Tell us, Grandpa Simon. Tell us of the olden days of the 3-mana 5/4s. Teferi now, continuing to tick up, and once again, as you can see here, Lim a long way ahead, and this is a pretty obvious situation here. His life total is not under pressure. He has a full grip of cards. Alexa Telarov has the, wow, what, 14th or 15th, 16,000th land drawn off the top of his deck there in hand, and Lim going from strength to strength here. Very neatly arranged his lands as well. I like to see that.
Both sides, actually.
Well, Telarov has a little bit of work to do because he doesn't have them all grouped by type. He could bring those botanical sanctums together. So a slight misplay on his side, but still pretty strong stuff from him. Good use of his real estate there. Nice, clean, tidy room. Sure his parents would be very proud. Here is a Scarab God now for Ernest Lim, and that's enough there. The Serbians saying, all right, I've seen enough. I've seen enough, my friend. The carnage can stop as we head now to the sideboards. These guys are going to get it stuck in with game number 2, and we're going to bring it to you live, my friends, as soon as those players are ready. Pretty big win there for Ernest Lim, who has, well, done well so far. We'll see how his fortunes continue as we continue with coverage of Pro Tour Dominaria. Stick with us. We've got to go to a break. We'll see you back here in Richmond very soon.
Fans are the people we want to hear because they are way more fans than there are Wizards employees, for one. And for two, they know what they want to see in this game. And so we have to listen. We are committed to listening to the fans, and we're committed to bringing this experience, an experience together that makes sense to the fans.
And welcome back to live coverage of Pro Tour Dominaria, coming your way from Richmond, Virginia in the United States. My name's Riley. I'm joined by Simon Gertzen, and it's great to have your company as we head towards the top 8 of this event. Saturday afternoon means it is time for Constructed Rounds Standard, to be specific, and we've got Tim Willoughby standing by now with an update from the floor. Tim, what's been going on?
Thanks, Riley. We've had a fair amount of action in our feature match area already. We had Ryuji Murray winning a very quick game one against Lucas Esposito, who wasn't really able to get too much going with his green-black deck. A fair amount of removal plus beatdown got the game one for Ryuji. The more interesting one is Morgan McLaughlin just sealed up his game one against Owen Turtenwald. Turn 3 history of Dominaria, he got down Khan, he got down Gideon. This black-white deck looks very cool, and while Turtenwald did have a few mana issues in there, I'm really intrigued to see how that one plays out. Meanwhile, Jones and Fujimura still locked in battling game one. We've got Planeswalkers, we've got Arguel's Bloodfast. That one, it remains to be seen who's going to be the victor.
Well, we'll see how things pan out between these two players. Thanks so much for that update, Tim, and indeed the players on the rest of the tables. Great to hear that History of Dominaria is pushing the Night Tribe further and further into the spotlight, Simon. We are going to check in now once again with the players on our front table. Alexa Teller of the Serbian playing off against Ernest Lim from Singapore. Simon, let's have a look at the sideboards of these players. Are there any cards once again that sort of mean that we're going to see them have a huge impact post-board?
I think the sideboard of Alexa Tellerov has to carry him here a little bit. We saw that in his main deck, his threats are not sufficient to deal with what Control has to offer, but there are a lot of cards you can bring in. So, for example, Blossoming Defense, Lifecrafter's Bestiary as a way to generate more and more card advantage. And then also Nissa Vital Force. Two of those, I think Planeswalker's always a great way to pressure control. And if you bring in a few negates on the way, That's really scary for Esper control.
Looks like we're just waiting for Ernest Lim here to finish sideboarding and shuffling up there. I did get a glimpse of Alexa Tellerov there. Looks like he's having a bit of a snoozle in the feature match area. So important to stay sharp mentally, Simon, and the old little micro sleep here and there will get that happening.
Power nap.
Power nap in the feature match area. One of my favourite moments, actually, of downtime between players was one time when John Finkel's opponent had to answer a call of nature, and Finkel's just there like, all right. He goes down into his bag and gets out the enormous brick of a fantasy novel that he was reading and just smashes through a few pages while he's waiting for his opponent to get back from the bio break. That was fantastic. I love to see that. But here now, these players consulting their opening grips, and we're going to see how they're looking here. An interesting mix of lands and spells here for the Singaporean. Fatal Push into Settle the Wreckage. I think that's a keeper there, Si.
Yeah, I didn't see the second white source yet, but this is actually kind of a surprise sideboard card. Ernest is bringing in one Settle the Wreckage from his mostly blue-black deck, probably to surprise some creature-heavy decks in Game 2.
Looks like Tellerov, however, is going to go down to 6. Not happy with the opener that he found there. And we do have a score update from the back tables here with Kevin Jones actually getting up in game number 1 against Katsuaki Fujimura there. So another blue-black mid-range list in the feature match area, beating out red-black aggro. Red-black aggro has been the talk of the tournament. It's been one of the most played decks, Simon, but it's certainly proven that it's a very, very vulnerable deck to when leveraged against correctly.
Yeah, it's interesting because somehow it seems that the control decks have the upper hand against a red-black aggro, despite the power of Bowmate Courier, Scrap Heap Scrounger, Heart of Kiran, all cards that you would think are problematic for control.
Let's have a look at this opener here from Alexa Tellerov, and I tell you what, you would have to have some pretty enormous amount of courage to keep that 0 lander. Did have the Lanor Elves, but now unfortunately the Serbian hero going down to 5 cards in hand, and that's not what you want, especially when you're down game 1.
5 cards on the play against control with Fatal Push.
Ugh.
That's very scary.
Yeah, that's rough here. And look, Ernest Lim sitting pretty, sipping that water, staying hydrated, looking after himself. And you'd think he's in a good spot already. We'd have to say the advantage bar well and truly in the Singaporean side of the court.
Oh, he has been in a pretty good spot most of the tournament. He has collected some losses by now, but still he is doing extremely well here.
Tellerov here. Cool, calm, collected once again. Cool as a cucumber he is, and he's not letting this phase him externally at least. And I like to see that. You know, you can't go to pieces. You've got to stay together. Funnier things have happened. We've seen miraculous wins off mulligans to 4, mulligans to 5, and this could be the hand. I mean, we'll see. The top 5 cards of this man's library could be doing him a big favour. We do have a match result now from our back tables as well. Ryuji Mirai has beaten Lucas Esposito in straight sets 2-0. So another black-red aggro deck getting it done for the Japanese player there. Unfortunately, the Brazilian now falls to 9-4. So beginning to exit the conversation for top 8 contention here, Si.
9-4 is this spot where you are you're not mathematically eliminated, but you are very unlikely to make it.
So practically, well, not a practical impossibility, I suppose, but yes, as you say, overwhelmingly unlikely. He's had a great run, finishing day number 1 at 8-0, the Brazilian there. So congratulations to him so far, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like he'll be crossing the finishing line this weekend.
So the score now is, he's now at
9-4.
9-4 after 8-0.
Yeah.
That's a tough day 2.
Yeah, 1-4 on day 2. The old Sailor of Means performance on day 2, that's not what you want. Look at this hand from, oh dear, poor old Alexa Tellerov, but he's got that Lanor Elves, and that is step number 1.
Not too bad for a 4-card hand.
Okay. We're gonna see a bit of confusion here on turn number 1, but it is all the same as you can see, my friends. As we cut to the beginning of this game, before he's even played a card, Ernest Lim with the advantage bar way out ahead. And look at this Fatal Push. More or less a stone rain in this situation, and Tellerov really with his back against the wall. Still got the writing all over it from when Nelson had his crayons out, and now Alexa Tellerov's shirt's getting all smudged, and he's not in a good way. So we'll see exactly how long this is going to continue. Finds a land and a Servant of the Conduit. Okay, all right, here we go.
Step 1.
Well, this is, yeah, we went back to step 1. We were on step 0 for a while there. So let's see. No, okay. No, Ernest Lim's just like, mate, you are not having any fun today. I'm sorry to tell you, but no. You're going to be 10-3, and there's nothing you can do about it. Negate and Nissa Vital force the cards in hand here for Telerov, who ships once again. Not too much to say about this. As he draws a second 5 drop. I mean, at least he's drawing his sideboards cards, right?
Exactly. Only sideboard cards in his hand.
Don't think it's going to win him this game of Magic now, as we have another Hash Up Oasis for him. And Lim now. He's got a huge grip. Look at this. Look at this. Torrential Gearhulk, commit to memory, cast down. He's got all the angles covered. Telerov now. Hinterland Harbour comes into play. Tapped, of course. Those Hash-Up Oases aren't forests, but a negate for the Glimmer of Genius.
Not bad, not bad. If Alexa rips a land and can cast 2 Nissas in a row against Ernest's counter magic, I think he might have a shot here.
And a Scarab God is going to open an opportunity for Telerov to do exactly that. He can't find the untapped land, however, Simon. It's the next best thing, however. It's a Llanowar Elves, but now Lim has untapped with a Scarab God, which, once again, I mean, we've seen it. It's been the death knell of many players throughout the history of this format, and this may be no different. Oh, it attacks for 5 as well.
It's a pretty busted card.
Secret mode on the Scarab God there from a control player. Here's Nissa Vital Force. Lim, however, has the commit to memory, has a Torrential Gearhulk. He's got many ways to deal with his Planeswalker.
Not even clear whether he has to do that, because activating the Scarab God is almost as good as countering Nissa here.
Get back the 4/4 Llanowar Elves. Oh yeah.
About to play the memory part, right?
So we'll see now what Lim is up to. I think
you hear what
Telerov.
Alexa
Yeah.
He was hoping for a memory just to refill his hand.
I don't think that one's likely to happen just yet here, because Lim's certainly in a very commanding position, as we've seen, riding the back of this Scarab God. Telerov has put up a valiant fight, it has to be said, after a mulligan of 4. This has not been a non-game, which is often what happens when we see players taking such harsh mulligans here. Here's another copy of Nissa Vital Force, but a Torrential Gearhulk is going to mean that Ernest Lim continues this rampage across Pro Tour Dominaria, improving to 11-2. We are going to move, however, now across to Owen Turtenwald and Morgan McLaughlin. This is a matchup between Owen Turtenwald on red-black aggro and Morgan McLaughlin on white-black Benalia, white-black Knights, Simon. Very excited to see this deck getting it done here, and we're going to check in with these guys as soon as things are good and ready over there. But talk us through that matchup there between the green-blue deck and the Esper deck. Was it as really as lopsided as it seemed there?
It seemed very lopsided to me. I think that the team around Alexa Telerov and Immanuel Gershenson, they had higher hopes for this matchup, because what you're trying to do with this deck choice is you're saying we might not be as good against Chain Whirler as other decks, but we will crush the anti-Chain Whirler decks. And well, that didn't really look like it was happening. It was working all that well. I'm sure there are draws where the mono green deck looks significantly better.
They didn't really play this scissors paper rock game quite correctly. It's sort of like this rock paper spatula. They didn't really bring the right implement to the table. Here, however, now we have Owen Turtenwald and Morgan McLaughlin. Owen Turtenwald, known to many, of course, as a Hall of Famer, a member of the Peach Garden Oath with Huey Jensen and Reed Duke, and of course, the Ultimate Guard Pro Team, a member of that one as well. One of the leading teams in the Pro Tour Team Series.
Yeah, Owen is just impressive. Watching him play, you can always learn something.
You can always learn something, and not just when it comes to playing Magic. Owen Turtenwald, I have to say, this isn't the nicest thing to say about someone. He has had his critics in the past. He's had people who have certainly called him out for some of his behaviour and some of his attitudes and the ways that he's expressed himself. And I have to say, as someone who only knows Owen in a professional from a professional perspective, Owen is actually really trying to turn that around. And I think that he deserves a fair bit of credit for that, because this Owen Turtenwald 2.0, Simon, is someone who is trying to show the love and the respect that he has for the game. He's trying to show that he respects his opponents and that he wants to have good, clean, fun games of Magic. And, you know, it's very easy to pass judgment down on people who can be a bit bitter and a bit cynical and a bit abrasive at times, but it's a difficult thing to congratulate them for when they're trying to mend their ways. And I commend Owen Turtenwald for, you know, I hope this doesn't come off as patronising. I hope this doesn't come off as something that is sort of, you know, a little bit ivory tower-esque, but This man is really attempting to do some good in the world, and I commend him for that.
It's really hard when you are as good as Owen, when you are under so much pressure to perform as Owen, and also when you have to take every game as seriously as somebody as Owen because you know how much is on the line, not only in this tournament but for basically his career, his World Championship appearance, and so on.
Let's talk about what happened in the match previous. We do have Tim Willoughby standing by to give us a quick update here as Owen Turtenwald looks at his opener here. Tim, can you give us a quick update as to how things have panned out previously?
Yeah, so in Game 2, Owen had a slightly better draw, especially against this Knights matchup. While the history of Dominaria did come out early alongside Khan on one side of the table, this time round, Owen had plenty of flyers to work with. Between Heart of Kieran, Rekindling Phoenix, and Glorybringer, he was able to sail over those Knights and get the win relatively straightforwardly, it must be said.
Let's head in now. Thanks so much, Tim. Let's head now to our game number 3 between these two players. It's going to be the deciding match, the deciding game, I should say, in this match here. Morgan McLaughlin on 11-1, Turtenwald on 10-2, and he's the first player to commit to the board with Kari Zev. McLaughlin, 3 lands, nowhere to go. I do see that he has a cast down in hand, but of course that can't go after the Skyship Raider.
It also can't go after Pianalar. I think these cast downs might be really terrible.
They're kind of bad, man. I don't like them in Limited, and I don't like them in Standard. I think they're terrific in Modern. But, you know, they can't go after Heart of Kieran. You know, they don't go... There are so many legendary creatures that are seeing play at the moment. And Morgan McLaughlin, with what many called a functional reprint of Doomblade, and its only target, Simon, is the lone Thopter.
Yeah, and that's probably not what Morgan was planning to do. But now he's holding 2 cast downs, and Owen has the perfect start to foil this removal. Here you actually see the play you just described.
Yep.
So he's going to have to try to get some value out of his cards where he can now. McLaughlin has got some pretty big beaters from Dominaria. Not only does he have the 4 copies of History of Benalia, he's also got 4 copies of Khan, the Scion of Urza. So really packing some heat in addition to the 4 copies of Knight of Malice and the single Knight of Grace. Knight Tribal getting it done, just as Richard Garfield intended here, as now we have 2 cards off the top to Khan, Scion of Urza. Looks like Concealed Courtyard's going upstairs thanks to a rat there. And a silver counter on the Fatal Push. Turtenwald really pressing the advantage here, Simon, and McLaughlin's under a lot of pressure.
Yes, what does Owen do against this Karn, though? Morgan on 17, that's a lot of life. Karn on 6, that's a lot of loyalty. And the attacks are not straightforward here.
So McLaughlin, he's going to hope that this Scion of Urza is going to get him, well, back in this game because he's fallen behind early. Oh, clunky removal spell there meant that he wasn't able to, you know, leverage any measure of efficiency here.
Yeah, but it was important that he took that 1 point of damage off the battlefield because it makes the difference between Karn being just dead or surviving on 1 loyalty.
Hazaret the Fervent joins the party as well. She won't be doing too much just yet because Turtenwald's still with 3 cards in hand here.
And a really, really difficult decision for Owen because Hazaret is not guaranteed to do much of anything next turn. He could have deployed something else, but of course it would have been a weaker play than Hazaret, for example, the Scrap Heap Scrounger.
Khan sticks around with 1 loyalty. He's got a lot. He's very loyal. He's smart. He's loyal, and I'm sure that Morgan McLaughlin appreciates that because it means that he's going to draw him at least 1 more card here.
Makes sense. He was loyal to Urza all his life, so no surprises there.
Ixalan's binding now on Hazaret the Fervent, a nice tidy answer, and Turtenwald will be hoping he doesn't have any further copies of the god stranded in his hand. Looks like McLaughlin's going to cash that Khan in.
I think that's absolutely correct. It would die anyway, so at least you're getting a Fatal Push out of the deal.
So Fatal Push is going to be able to remove Kari Zev. In we come with Pianalar and the Glorybringer. So the pressure continues here, and Morgan McLaughlin not spared the heat of the Dragon's Flames.
Yep. I love the speed that Owen is playing at. Just 5 mana, Glorybringer, attacks, already anticipating the Fatal Push.
And he's all business. He's all business. He's playing clipped, fast, precise Magic, you know. And, you know, as you said, there's always something to learn from Owen Turtenwald.
At the same time, taking his time on turn 4, because that was a crucial decision, a difficult decision.
Morgan McLaughlin certainly taking his time as well, and for good reason. He's under a fair bit of pressure. You can see History of Benalia hiding out there, that saga with that beautiful Noah Bradley art.
All the sagas have pretty amazing art.
Oh, absolutely incredible. And across so many different styles as well, which was something that really spoke to me. I was lucky enough to receive the print of the knight that they generate. You know, the sort of the mythic token.
Yes.
Yeah, my good friends Yamin and Toffel sent me the art there for my birthday. That was a very kind present there, and I've got that framed on the wall. Looks absolutely stunning. There it is there. Oh my goodness me! Look at that. Just makes me all gooey inside. My people, Simon. My people. Here is the History of Benalia and the knight to go with it. Morgan McLaughlin, a gentleman, a man of true taste and refinement here. But all the taste and refinement in the world doesn't help you when you're being beaten down by Owen Turtenwald. 2 mana now.
Scrounger.
And Orat plays the Scrounger.
Combat. Yep. Attack with both before blocks. Disintegration.
Looks like an unlicensed disintegration. Owen Turtenwald doing our job for us here with the floor mic, picking up all of this, all of the plays he's making.
So I take
Yeah.
8.
Super clear in his communication.
Take 3.
In this particular turn, communicating 9 damage to Morgan.
And as we just heard Turtenwald announce there, down to 2. I don't see a way out of it here for McLaughlin. He needs a huge swingy play, and I don't know if his deck's even capable of this at this point. Off the top, is that a fatal push? No, it's an Angel of Sanctions instead here. History of Benalia goes up, creates another Knight token. But can Morgan McLaughlin keep himself in this one?
Angel of Sanctions is a big board impacting play, but I don't think it's enough. I've really not been impressed with Walking Ballista in this metagame.
No, it hasn't done the work that we've expected of it, Simon.
No, but it's clear when players are shying away from 1 toughness creatures that Walking Ballista loses some of its appeal.
That's true. I mean, we've seen a pretty clear split down the middle of people who do or don't care about Goblin Chain Whirl, or people who have or haven't moved away from various 2-1s like Champion of Wits and Glintsleeve Siphoner. We saw Pascal Maynard with his classic Champion of Wits deck punished heavily in the feature match area yesterday. And we've seen people adjust, moving away from Bowman Courier towards Soulscar Mage. And as a result, the stocks of old Walkie B have really dwindled. McLaughlin now, he's going to make a play. It looks like it'll be a Invoke the Divine here. And that's a nice way for him to buffer his life total here, Simon.
Especially because Owen didn't have mana to activate Pianalar in response.
Sure.
Walking Ballista. McLaughlin up to 6 with 2 blockers here. History of Benalia is not doing a huge amount next turn. So we've really come past the good part of the story already. Chapter 3 is the one, you know, you sort of fall asleep to as your dad's reading it, at bedtime. And back to Turtenwald now. Can he pull this one together? In hand, he's drawn a Hazoret. Ooh, that's a real stinker. In addition to that PNLR. Hazoret, of course, usually a great draw. Not so in this situation here, Simon.
I mean, he has Morgan almost dead. He doesn't need much.
Exert.
So Exert to destroy the 2/2 Vigilance Knight token here. Or rather, I mean, I guess that makes sense from a flavor perspective. Knight beats Dragon. Almost, oh, sorry, Dragon beats Knight almost every time.
Pass again.
And we're going to see the block on the PNLR. And if Morgan McLaughlin allows damage to resolve, that's going to unlock one of the cards in Turtenwald's hands. You can be happy with that.
Actually, yeah, because the 1/1
Your turn.
Thopter is lethal with Pia's activated ability.
Yeah. Yep. So Morgan McLaughlin, History of Benalia, goes out with a fizzle rather than a bang. And draws a card and finds a Vraska's Contempt. Does that change things, Simon?
Glorybringer is turned off for a turn. Vraska's Contempt could take down Pia. Morgan is surviving. He needs another top deck, though.
Well, piece number 1 of this particular puzzle is Vraska's Contempt here.
There's still the Angel of Sanctions, though. Maybe that is now the time to deploy it, and Morgan just has to hope that Owen doesn't have a removal spell. We know it's a Hazoret that's uncastable because of Excellence Binding.
So Owen Turtenwald with a blank piece of cardboard in his hand. Just a little slice of a ham sandwich there. And McLaughlin is, yeah, not dead. Angel of Sanctions to exile the PNLR, block the token. Vraska's Contempt to remove the Glorybringer. But looks like McLaughlin's just shipped. He's going to rely on that Vraska's Contempt.
But
Turtenwald now.
But now he gives Owen the ability to pump with Pia. I think that might have been a misstep.
Oh dear, yes, he could have indeed cast that Vraska's Contempt on the P in the last turn to prevent the extra point of damage here, but now he's priced into that the Thopter.
No, I think he's just drawing dead. He was probably just drawing dead either way because Owen was getting back the Scrap Heap Scrounger.
And
so it didn't really matter.
And that's going to be enough there for Morgan McLaughlin to extend the hand, going down to 11-2, which of course is also Owen Turtenwald's record as well. So congratulations to ORAT. He's done very well to get himself this result, and he's drawing closer to another top 8 finish here. We're going to move over now to our next table. You can see still on your screen that we've got some players still down in the feature match area ready to go. Looks like Kevin Jones and Katsuaki Fujimura are there. Looks like they're in the middle of a judge call here, maybe having an issue resolved. However, as we're getting ready to have a look at what's going on there, Simon, we can talk a little bit about the decks that both of these players are playing. Looks like a pretty classic black-red list here in the hands of Katsuaki Fujimura.
Yes, that is just black-red aggro with Bowmat Couriers, but also bringing 2 Karns to the battlefield. Not all black-red players have brought Karns. Even Inventor's Apprentice in this deck list, so a little more artifact-heavy than other lists.
Kevin Jones, however, playing blue-black mid-range. This is a deck that we've seen out and about this weekend here, Simon, and sort of straddling the difference between control and mid-range, still with a good number of removal spells and counter spells.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to classify this deck. It's a little bit of everything. Yesterday we saw mostly Pascal Maynard with blue-black mid-range. It's a deck that has Champion of Wits. I think one of the key cards is Liliana Death's Majesty, which we saw do really good things in Pascal Maynard's hand. I think that these deck lists are a bit different. Kevin Jones' deck is more controlling. It doesn't quite have the same amount of creatures.
Yeah, we're looking in those decks. We're looking at things like 4 copies of various 2-drops. I mean, in addition to things like Champion of Wits, we see Glintsleeve Siphoner in the board here for Kevin Jones. So he isn't looking to have those blistering fast starts that we see sometimes.
I thought I was at 16 before this. But this number
so the situation right now in the feature match area is kind of an odd one for you, Simon. I'll tell you what's going on here, because there is a discrepancy in the life totals, and these players here are disagreeing. They're arguing over who is on what life total. But the thing is here, Kevin Jones is arguing that he is on a lower life total than his opponent, Katsuaki Fujimura, says he's on.
Yeah, that's right.
So ultimately here, it looks like Kevin Jones is really just being a good sportsman and really attempting to make sure the game is being played fairly, because his opponent's saying, no, buddy, seriously, you're on a high life total. He's like, no, mate, I don't think I am. I think I'm a bit lower. And they're working through the game and calculating exactly what's going on. And you might be able to hear on the floor a little bit of the chatter that's happening.
It did, but
no damage then.
Right, no damage. Yeah, I think it just...
And we do have a Japanese judge down there as well to translate. It's often, a wide assemblage of nations from around the world here at the Pro Tour, and a multilingual, a polyglot of judge team languages available to resolve any issues there. But let's talk about this matchup from a wider perspective here, Simon, because looking at the decks as they line up, I mean, in the sort of, in the abstract, what's your expected result here?
Yeah, one thing I always look for when I see Goblin Chainwhirler on one side is the 1 toughness creatures on the other. And Kevin Jones is playing Champion of Wits. However, he doesn't really care so much if Champion of Wits dies to Goblin Chainwhirler, because he is ultimately a control deck in this matchup. He even has either Meltdown to deal with Heart of Kirin in a very elegant way. So I have to say, I like Kevin Jones' take on the metagame. It's an unusual strategy, but all his cards are powerful, and I think he is particularly well positioned against red-black aggro.
See, Champion of Wits is kind of an awkward one there because of the Goblin Chainwhirler situation, but, drawing 2 cards, discarding 2 cards, you'll get your value out of that. It's not something like Glintsleeve Siphoner, which can come down, do stone nothing, and then die on turn 3 as your
Yeah, and you don't have to cast the champion on turn 3.
Yeah, sure. And then again, there's also the extra value that you can get out of the board. And I like putting the Glintsleeve Siphoner in the board here for Kevin Jones, and it does seem that the judges are ruling well, in his favour, is that the right way to say it here? They're agreeing with him that he is on the lower life total. So, you know, it's good to see. I mean, I love to see this sort of stuff at the highest level of play. Jones, obviously, you know, a scrupulous individual and not looking to take any advantage where he can get it.
No, but this is
So we do have
exactly
this
what players at this level are expected to do. If you notice a discrepancy, you cannot decide if it favors you or not, and then decide whether you would like to fix it. It's absolutely correct behavior here.
Absolutely, and we do commend Kevin Jones for it. That is the, I mean, yeah, that's the minimum expectation of players worldwide. And just as a reminder for anyone who may be getting into tournament Magic for the first time, call a judge. Call a judge. If you've got an issue, call a judge. Just, it's not an insult to your opponent. It's not any kind of judgment call or anything on anyone at any point. Call a judge if there's an issue, and they'll resolve it. That is quite literally their one job.
As an extension of that, encourage your opponents to call the judge.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just a habit to get into.
And if someone calls a judge on you, don't take it personally. They're not saying anything about you as a person. They're wanting to get an issue in a game of Magic resolved, and there is nothing wrong with that. I know that a lot, you know, for a lot of old players watching this broadcast, like, yeah, sure, we know to call a judge. Of course, it's obvious, but it's not. It's not obvious to the newer player that calling a judge, you know, because it's like telling on your little brother, you know, getting mum and dad involved, and all of a sudden you're sitting on the naughty step, and that's that. The only person on the naughty step right now, however, we do have a game result, and Kevin Jones beats Katsuaki Fujimura in straight sets as well, Simon. So a nice tidy little victory for him to continue his onslaught. He improves to 10-2-1. So again, in the conversation for top 8, Simon. As we welcome you back to the booth now at the end of that round, a bit of a delay, but ultimately everything resolved happily ever after there. Well, until the next round at least. Stick around, my friends, because there's plenty more Magic coming your way from Pro Tour Dominaria. We do hope you're going to join us for the rest of the weekend's action. But for now, we've got to go to this break. We'll see you back here in Richmond very soon.
Play Standard each week to win special Standard Showdown prize boosters. Dominaria Standard Showdown events are being held near you. Find a location to play at magic.wizards.com/Standard Showdown.
In general, we talk about the fourth loss as being really critical at the Pro Tour because Destiny is kind of out of your hands, because even if you finish at 12-4, maybe you don't quite have enough tie breaks to get you into the top 8 if anyone sneaks in at 12-4. At 12-3-1 or better, we assume that's going to be enough. But when draws happen, that messes. That really messes with the math. 3 players have draws that are in the thick of the action. Kevin Jones, we've just seen advance to 10-2 and a draw. Fujimura loses, goes to 9-3-1. Who else is at 9-3-1? Remember lunchtime when we said that Elias Watsfeld was the draft master? Well, now he's carried on winning. So at 9-3-1, he can win 3 more matches and potentially make a Pro Tour top 8. As a result, when we get to the last round, if any of those players are playing another player with a draw on 34 points, they will play to get to 37. And all those 36s who would like to draw to get into the top 8, they may have to play. And at that point, 36 could be live for 1, 2, even 3 slots in the top 8. We'll keep an eye on all the math, because I know you all love to keep an eye on the math. Someone who would like to not need the math is down on the floor right now. It's one of our co-leaders. BDM, who have you got?
Thanks, Rich. I'm here with Morgan McLaughlin. Morgan is 11-2 here at this point in the tournament. Tough loss there to Owen, but no shame in losing to one of the best players to ever play the game.
I just beat him in draft, though, so or 1-on-1.
So you're really looking for a tiebreaker coming up somewhere over the rest of this weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
So now tell me a little bit about yourself. Your name might be familiar to people who've been paying attention to coverage over the last couple weeks. You've had a pretty nice run these last 2 months, starting with an RPTQ that qualified you for this event.
Yep. And then after that, like, we played the GP, and I mean, I haven't been losing.
So that was Grand Prix Toronto, which was a team event. And who were you playing with in that Grand Prix?
So I was playing with Lucas Sio and Chris Harabis. Got carried by Chris, actually. I mean, it was kind of a joke that, you know, he was coming with us, and we kind of invited him on the team. And then I don't think he lost a match until the finals, but then we picked him up right there. So it was great.
Lucas Sio now, that's kind of a secret weapon to have when you're going into a tournament in a new standard format. People at home might not know his name, but he really is one of the most successful constructed players for a window of time on the Pro Tour. Did he help you out coming to this event?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot before the GP, obviously, because we were teaming. And I mean, and just before that weekend, actually, Daniel Fournier, who's also part of like the Toronto community, we talk, won the online PTQ with the same deck. So we talked a little bit, took it from there. And then after the GP, it was just like I kept thinking about switching. He gave me a little tidbit of advice. He said, play 70 or 75. You know, change a couple cards and just go from there. I changed a couple more than that. But basically decided that like the Toolcraft exemplars in the deck weren't doing anything for me. Like testing all the matchups, it didn't seem to help me anywhere except blue-white. And I thought that was my best matchup, so I thought I could cut those and kind of, as soon as I did that, it kind of came from there.
Of course, the deck you're playing is this white-black Benalia deck. It's sort of knights a little bit, looks maybe a little bit like the vehicles deck sometimes. What was the reasoning for, like, what matchup were you really looking for when you chose that deck for this tournament?
So I want to play against red-black. I mean, I just lost to red-black, but from the Grand Prix into this tournament, like, I don't think I've lost a match. I think I might have lost to Jennifer Krotz. At one point we might have drew. I forget exactly, but we lost that round. But it's been great, and now that I've got the Toolcraft, I think my game one's even better too. But yeah.
Now, you said in that match with Owen, you were replaying it after after the match we were talking, and you were like, what happened there? That there was a big decision that you're hoping doesn't haunt you here.
Yeah, it was, like, basically I didn't leave up a third land. I played my tap land instead of playing the untapped land with an Invoke in my hand, and then followed up with Scrap Heap into Disintegration, which like really put me out. Maybe you wouldn't have gone for the play if I had the 3-up, and then I wouldn't be able to tag it to, like, but that's like a 7-life swing, and so that would have been a big deal, but it happens.
That third mana would have let you have the Invoke, the Divine, access that turn. Now, you did eventually get that 4-life when you used it, but you took that 3-point hit there.
And I couldn't cast the Angel the next turn either, so it was really awkward. Yeah.
Now, this is your third Pro Tour. Last time you played in the Pro Tour was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
You feel like you're still. What's this experience been like of having such a deep run in the tournament? Because that's not something you've done before.
No, I mean it's great. It's fantastic. I mean, like, I thought top fouring, so I top 4 GP Montreal like 2 years ago, and I thought that would just be the peak of my career and, fade off into the sunset, but I don't know. I mean, this is great.
Now, I know you talked about some real-life stuff that's been impinging on your Magic time. Anyone at home watching this weekend? Is your wife following this rapidly?
Sarah's not watching. If she's watching, I'll be very surprised. Maybe she'll tell me, but I don't think she is.
All right, Sarah, if you're watching, let him know. He's doing really well. Morgan McLaughlin, 11-2 here with just a few rounds to go on day 2 of Pro Tour Dominaria.
Yeah, that's a tremendously impressive interview there, and I kind of feel that that is someone who you can't expect to fall over all by themselves. Sometimes you see players at 10-2, 11-2, 11-1, and you think, yeah, that finish line's a long, long way away. Wouldn't surprise me if he won the whole thing, although, as we know, Salvador against Brad Nelson's what's going to happen. But anyway, we have time now for another deck tech, and we're going to go to Brazil. We're going to go to Black Green Constrictor, and we're going to go to Lucas S. Bebeto.